Hi folks, my name's Tim with ABC Acres in Hamilton, Montana. Today is Tuesday, August, I don't even know what today is. That's a good thing. I'm living on the farm in Montana. Why should I know what the date is? August 11th, 12th, somewhere in there. Anyway, part 3 of our tree belt series. We're going to be wrapping it up today. We're going to be talking about the trees we planted in the belt and why. So we're starting not in the belt, but out of the belt. And that's the best way to show you our northernmost run, or row 4 as we call it. It's a repeating pattern of black locust, maple, black locust. And I hope you can see that maple behind me. Just a pan up and then a pan back down there. A couple things I want to take into account. Why did we choose maples or upper canopy trees on the north side of our tree belts? Well, if I was cattle in this pasture 1 here, you can see that I'm actually standing in the shade of the maple tree. So your trees on the northern part of the belt will put their shade onto the pasture just to the north of them. So we wanted tall canopy trees in place for the comfort of our livestock. At the same time, you'll notice the planting proximity of these trees. There's about a 5-foot separation between these trees. On average, we're closer to 10 foot, but I thought this drove a good point. Because they're close together, even though they're young, they are competing for available sunlight. And what that does is it teaches them to go up straight, true, and fast. And so again, these trees were at my thigh height in 2014. Here we are 4 years later, and we've got ourselves easily a 15-foot maple tree. So quick growth in 4 years, combination of tight planting, good access to sun, good access to water. In the maple honey locust repeating pattern, the locusts were to serve dual purposes for us, or multiple purposes. One, competition to push the maples up high. Black locust is a nitrogen fixer, so we can chop and drop the leaf structure once or twice throughout the year, put those leaves down underneath our maples to infuse nitrogen from the top, but as well as what we're cutting on the top is also being cut below grade, if you will. And so the release of the nitrogen nodules from the root systems of the locusts feed the maples. So again, we got this fertilizing component. Also, the idea that these black locusts within a 5 to 7 year period would be cut out completely and be future fence posts. And as silly as that may sound, because you just can't imagine the growth rate of them, it is certainly the case. We easily have 3-inch calipers now. 5 to 6-inch calipers by year 5-7 is not out of the question. And so future fence posts with a natural rot-resistant infrastructure for 40 to 60 years works really well for us here in Montana. Now, we did 4 different varieties of maple trees. We did sugar, red, silver, and Norway. So the idea was, with this quick growth vertically, as well as getting healthy trunk diameter in a period of 10, 15, 20 years, again with tree systems, you want to look a little longer term, we're thinking we'll take out every other one for purposes of hardwood timber sales. Because if you have these big trees over a 30-year period, they really are going to start competing against each other and could affect their mature growth. And so we're going to cut out every other one, and we'll get timber value off of that. That's excellent. At the same time, we'll let the remaining ones really spread their wings, dominate the space, and those can, one, really showcase shade to the north in the pastures for our livestock systems, but at the same time can be a source for syrup should we choose to tap them. Some multi opportunities there. We'll look to take out the red maples and the Norway maples and leave the sugar and silver for syrup. So that's the concept on the northern side of the tree belts, row 4. Also, I don't know if you can see it quite just in here, there is an autumn olive planted underneath the maple tree. So underneath each tree, maples in this case, when we dig the hole and plant the maple, we also plant a nitrogen fixer in with it. Autumn olive, sea buckthorn, silver wolfberry, to name a few. And so we chop and drop those throughout the year, again, infusing fertilization for quicker growth. That's row 4. Let's now go inside the tree belt and look at row 3. So now we're in tree belt 3. This is row 3 to me. So again, behind it are the maple locusts. Here we come into our evergreen deciduous row. We went with the evergreens because year-round, spring, summer, fall, winter, we did want to have in time an impenetrable wall that would never lose its leaves, and so it could give us the wind, lessening the wind issue with regards to summer evaporation of our pastures, but also give us the winter protection for our livestock from the winter winds. So in this shot behind me, you'll see Austrian pines. Now, we planted about 1,350, 1,400 trees in this entire system. The majority of the trees were 3 feet in height, and they had a cost probably somewhere in the area of 95 cents to maybe $3 per tree. The evergreens were not that case. We got a screaming deal from our nursery. These Austrian pines were all about 10 feet when I purchased them. At $100 a foot. They had gotten too big for the nursery to really be able to sell to most clientele, so they sold me 27 right off the bat, and after that I went ahead and found another good deal, and we bought about 80 evergreen trees. So that was the big expense, to try to accentuate having that permanent wall, if you will, sooner than later. And then we planted an array of different deciduous trees between them, something with a fodder component that would drop mast, would drop nuts, would drop seed pods. Here is a honey locust that's doing really well. Again, a nitrogen fixer, another fast grower, probably at about 10 feet there. And we have oaks, we have purple beeches, we have some pin cherries. So different things of interest, wildlife components, future mast that could drop for livestock components, so that we could graze our animals through a mature forested system in time when it can take that pressure, timed pressure, through a rotational system. You might not be able to see in this shot, but we have lupin here. So again, alfalfa, lupin, clover, comfrey are the plants that we seed and plant in underneath our long-term tree species. So again, row 3 is acting as a long-term, year-to-year, season-to-season wind block, privacy block, with an element of livestock and wildlife attractant with the deciduous trees. Most of these trees, all 4 rows, are planted on average 10 to 12 foot centers. A little bit adjusting as we make our turns. We pinch points and get a little shallow of that sometimes, but for the most part 10 to 12 feet. Let's go take a look at row 2. Row 2. Well, I hope I didn't confuse you. We're now in row 2, but I turned the camera around. So the previous 2 shots we were looking west, we're now looking east. So row 2 is on my left. As you can probably see, some evergreens to my right, that's row 3, and then the maples behind them, row 4. I wanted to turn around because it's just a beautiful chestnut tree, and chestnut tree is the focus of row 2. So row 2, we have a chestnut black locust repeating pattern. The idea driving this at the beginning of 2014 was we were seeing wonderful price points for pork finished on chestnuts, especially within the European markets. And so could we make this investment in infrastructure now and planting so that in a 10-year period, 15, 20 years, once this is all mature, we have the fences down, could we move our hogs through this 8-acre pasture, grazing on the grass, but then come September, October, bring them systematically through these nice covered forests where they could graze on the chestnuts as well as the oaks and the beeches and the what do we also have? The honey locust pods, but primarily the chestnuts. So here we have a chestnut tree. Here's a silver wolfberry below it. Hope you can see that. There's also lupin, clover. Don't see the comfrey up in this one. And so same premise with the black locust behind us, chopping it, dropping it, building fertility, but allowing for the dominance of the chestnut to really grow into this space. In the long term, the chestnut will be the focal point of the system. And so we'll make a point to do strategic thinning as they grow to ensure they get the light and all the nutrient that they need to dominate the space. So again, chestnut, locust, over the whole. Well, I did it to you again. I flipped the camera. We're in row 1. Row 1 sits up on the southern part of the tree belt. Row 1 consists of a number of varieties of berry producing plants and shrubs and trees. The idea was to bring color in, to bring harvesting capabilities for human as well as wildlife. In time, as these grow out and get more productive, the deer and the elk herds that come through here look onto the other side, look within the belts and think, boy, that looks good, should I challenge the fencing? And that leads to problems. So by planting, this is an aronia berry, does really well here. By planting the berries on this southern edge, in time they grow up and out. And that allows the wildlife, particularly the wildlife, but also the livestock in time, to graze the outside and get a level of sustenance through that, rather than having to challenge the fence for it. So I thought we'd just take a quick 30 seconds and snap through some of the berry producing plants we have here. So again, aronia berry. And before I leave you, and they're actually about a week out from harvesting, right there. Before I leave you, you'll see a frost free here. Hopefully you can pick that up in the side of your camera. I accidentally left that off of part 2 yesterday, or last week. But each one of these tree belts has a frost free in it, and that allows us to hook up water. So as we move our cattle through, we attach a hose, and it's a very simple way for us to move water through the system here over this 8 acres. Let's go take a look at some other plants. It's already fruited, but elderberry. Again, it's already fruited, but serviceberry. And serviceberry is actually challenging the fence here, and I'm starting to see signs of where it's being nibbled from the outside. So it's playing its part with the local wildlife. Ouch! Yet to fruit, sea buckthorn, nitrogen fixer, little orange fruit, about the size of a pea, maybe slightly larger, 10 times pound for pound the amount of vitamin C compared to your Florida oranges. Ouch. A small variety of different fruit trees. Here we have peach, soft and velvety, another 6 weeks to go. Can't forget the pear tree. This is a Flemish beauty pear. Aren't they beautiful? Another 6 weeks to go. In tree belt 1, we actually built the belts around some old farm apple trees. Tart, but flavorful. A Montrose apricot, 4 years in, fruited last year, not this year. This one does not fruit very often. Raspberry red nectarine. Still rather firm, 3-4 weeks until they're ready. Gorgeous. Here's a unique one. When we were designing this in the winter of 13, California was just coming off, again, extended drought, and the question was, could we make Montana the almond capital of the world? So this is one of 5 different varieties of Ukrainian hardy almonds we have. I think this is an all-in-one prunus, all-in-one hardy almond, but as you can see, they're doing really well. Pretty exciting. Can't wait to see what they're like. Here we are, pasture 2. Got our irrigation going here on a hot Tuesday afternoon. Hopefully now you get an idea for what the tree belts bring to this 8-acre pasture. Not only the pasture itself and how the livestock interact with it and how these belts buffer and protect them and feed them and offer a lot of benefits, but also just by this video going inside the belts and seeing the short-term productivity with the berries and other fruits year to year, as well as the long-term vision for the chestnuts or for the timber components, the syrup components. A lot of things at work there. So it's been a wonderful 4 years on this piece of ground. The tree belts are certainly one of my favorite projects. Glad I got to share them with you here the last 3 weeks. Invite you to come on down to ABC Acres, stay on the farm with us. Got a couple of great farm stay rentals. We'll get you out and you can see this firsthand. So if you have any questions about this, if I can answer any of your considerations as you get into design for next year, leave them in the comments down below. Happy growing, everyone. Have a great week ahead.